Advantage, here today with another educational opportunity so that we may be able to educate our listeners or our community about the different isolation struggles that they may have gone through post pandemic, ways to find food and housing information. And today we have Gabrielle from the Alzheimer's Association, who's going to go ahead and share some great information with us once again. Thank you very much for coming on, Gabrielle, and it's your floor.
Thank you so much, Donna, and I appreciate the opportunity for giving the platform to raise Alzheimer's awareness. So I'm just going to share my screen real quick, and I believe you guys are able to see that. Give me 1 second here. All right. So, as Ms. Donna mentioned, my name is Gabrielle Hanna. I am the Community Engagement Manager of DEI for the Alzheimer's Association Greater Missouri chapter. We service 96 counties, 10 of which are in that Illinois side, the Metro East, which makes us greater. I've been with the association since fall of 2022. And through my career here, I've had the pleasure of raising Alzheimer's awareness, education, and support to underserved and underrepresented communities. So today, I will be talking to you all about the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's disease and how to recognize those signs in yourselves and in someone you love. So we'll get right to it. So what you'll learn today is how to describe typical age-related memory, thinking, or behavior changes. You'll recognize common warning signs of Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, discuss the tips for approaching someone about the disease, also explain the importance of early detection and benefits of diagnosis. And then we'll name, of course, a few resources and services that we have here at the Alzheimer's Association. So there's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to dementia versus Alzheimer's. So I will break that down for you all to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So first, let's start with some statistics. Currently today, there's about 7 million Americans who are estimated to have dementia, and this will double in the next 30 years. So that's a staggering number. And so let's start by differentiating Alzheimer's versus dementia. So if you want to think of dementia as an umbrella term used to describe a range of symptoms associated with cognitive impairment. So these symptoms of dementia include difficulties with memory, language, problem solving, and other cognitive skills that affect a person's ability to perform those everyday tasks. Alzheimer's disease is essentially the most common form of dementia and accounts for, that 60 to 75% of cases. It's actually gone up since we created this presentation. It's around 80 now. But other causes of dementia include that vascular dementia or Lewy bodies or frontotemporal. So vascular dementia is previously known as multi-infarct or post-stroke dementia. And then it's the hardening of the artery. So generally this occurs in people who've had several cardiovascular episodes like stroke or heart attack. Some estimates that as many as 50% of people with Alzheimer's also show signs of those infarcts or mini strokes. If we look at Lewy bodies, some symptoms of, they do share some of the same symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. However, the early symptoms can also include sleep disturbances, visual impairments, hallucinations, gait problems, and Parkinsonian movement and features that shakiness. If we look at frontotemporal, this one has been popular. I hate to use that term, but it's been in the news more so because celebrities such as Bruce Willis and Wendy Williams have been diagnosed with this particular form of dementia. And so frontotemporal dementia includes that primary progressive aphasia that we've heard that Willis currently has, Pick's disease, and several other dementias affecting the frontal temporal lobe. Unlike Alzheimer's, memory is typically not affected first. It's kind of a sign later on. And instead of the typical early symptoms, include marked changes in personality and behavior or difficulty with producing and comprehending language, which is the true characteristic of this form. So there are other conditions like Parkinson's disease that can cause dementia in some situations where um, it's reversible, like hormone or vitamin deficiencies. That's why getting a diagnosis is very, very important. So now that we've differentiated what Alzheimer's is versus dementia, and we're all on the same page, I'm going to jump right into those 10 warning signs. So if we look at the first one, the most common sign being very early on is memory loss that disrupts daily life. So forgetting important information, dates, or events, repeatedly asking the same questions, and increasingly relying on those memory aids or leaning on others to remember things that was once handled on your own or their own, that would be considered a warning sign. But on the other hand, a typical age related change would be forgetting information sometimes, or um, forgetting a name if you just met that person. But the key is that you're able to recall it later, or you're able to retrace your steps to kind of put the pieces together of what information you're trying to remember or who that person's name was. The second warning sign is challenges in planning or solving problems. So some people may experience new difficulties in that executive function. So that includes developing or following a plan or difficulty concentrating. But on the other hand, a typical age-related change could be making those occasional errors, when managing bills or household finances. Um, want you all to keep in mind when we're going through these warning signs that you do not have to recognize all 10 in order to come to concern about this disease, right? Everyone goes through this disease differently. So if they're experiencing 1 to 10 of these signs, that still could be a red flag, right? So moving on to number 3, difficulty completing familiar tasks. So people living with dementia find it hard to complete daily tasks that used to be managed with ease, such as driving or driving to a familiar place, I should say, writing a grocery list, or remembering how to play their favorite game. On the other hand, conversely, a typical age-related change would be occasionally needing help to use the microwave or the remote. We know how many buttons are on the remote, and we only use about, 10 of them. So, having trouble with that is not a cause of concern. Um, Technology can be difficult, but again, if this person at one point in time was really great with technology and was picking up on instructions and now they're having difficulty, that might be a concern or a sign for them. Warning sign number 4, confusion with time or place. So, if an individual with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, they may lose track of dates, seasons, or time. So, they may have trouble understanding something if it's currently happening, or become confused about where they are or how they got there. So, this can become more dramatic or profound in the middle or later stages of the disease, not so much early on. But if we look at what a typical age-related change would be for this, it could be getting confused about what day it is or when a scheduled appointment is, but figuring it out later. So many of us who work a 9 to 5, we're like, oh, shoot, is it Friday? Or we hope it's Friday and it's really Wednesday, right? So that's not uncommon or weird to 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 experience. Sometimes we have very busy lives and we forget a meeting or an appointment here and there. Again, not a huge cause of concern. Again, if this is repeated behavior, then it may be something to consider as a warning sign. Moving on to warning sign number 5, trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. So individuals who have Alzheimer's or dementia may experience vision problems, which can lead to difficulty with balance, trouble reading, and problems judging distance and determining color and contrast, which all of these things can impact driving or just simply navigating the environment around them. So vision changes such as like cataracts, of course, is a typical age-related change, but I want to draw attention to this particular warning sign because this shows that it's not only about memory and how this disease or a sign can be contributed to the physicality of it, right? Now we're seeing that physical component of their vision and being able to determine color and contrast as being a warning sign. Um, Moving on to number 6. So, new problems with words and speaking or writing. So, individuals may have trouble following or joining a conversation, stop in the middle of a conversation and then forget what they're talking about. And then they continuously repeat themselves, right? So, many of us fall victim of forget what they're talking about, or we walk into a room and forget why we were there in the first place and why we walked into the room. But again, we remembered that we were in that space and that we forgot. Someone who has dementia or Alzheimer's, they wouldn't be able to um, connect that they forgot, and instead they repeat themselves as if it never happened because they don't remember that, right? So they might struggle um, with this warning sign. They might also struggle with finding the right word or calling things by the wrong name, and they may start using more descriptive terms to talk about something rather than the name of the actual item. So a volunteer of ours, her mother and her were driving road trip, and they were passing by this beautiful sceneries, mountains, and her mother points out the window and was like, look at those beautiful umbrellas. And her daughter, our volunteer, was like, "What umbrellas? I don't see them." And she didn't think anything of it. She was driving, so maybe she passed it up and couldn't see it anymore. But then a couple minutes later, she was like, "No, they're right there, the pretty umbrellas." And so her daughter was like, "There's no umbrellas." Turns out her mother was trying to describe the beautiful mountains that were ahead that they were passing. So that would be considered a warning sign, right? Using Instead of using the proper term or the correct word to describe something, they use something else. But conversely, a typical age-related change would just be occasionally having trouble finding the right word, which many of us experience. Moving on to number 7, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace your step. So that's something we want to highlight there is the inability to retrace your steps. That makes what's different from someone who's diagnosed with dementia versus someone who is not. So a person with this disease may lose things and then they're not able to recall when it was last seen or identify the location where it was placed. And then because they're not able to recall that, they might put things in unusual places, like putting keys in the fridge, right? So I want you guys to be mindful of for all of these warning signs. If you're able to recall, retrace, remember, you're in good standing when it comes to your memory. People who are experiencing memory loss, cognitive decline are unable to do those things. So, because of the lack of executive function and awareness, the person may grow increasingly suspicious of others because they're putting things in unusual places and unable to retrace their steps that they even did that in the first place. So they become suspicious and they start accusing others of stealing. And that just kind of happens more frequently over time. So moving on to number 8, decreased or poor judgment. So when dealing with money or paying less attention to hygiene and grooming, that's kind of where this comes in play. So this would become more common in individuals who live alone. But again, making a bad decision once in a while, forgetting to get oil change, those are things that kind of happen with age or just as human beings, right? Living busy lives. Um, Again, this particular sign might occur in the later stages of the disease, not so much in an early stage, but it's definitely something to pay attention to because it's not like a light switch, right? It's not on and off. One day, they're clean, the next day they're dirty. It'll be a gradual change where they're just not keeping up with their hygiene or they're not paying careful attention to balancing their check or they're just spending money very carelessly, stuff of that sort. Now we're at the final 2 warning signs. So we have number 9, which is withdrawal from work or social activities. Someone who is experiencing these dementia-related changes may start to lose their ability to hold and follow a conversation as they once did. And as a result, they begin to retract and withdraw from social encounters or hobbies. And they begin to lose that confidence to engage in the way that they once did um, because they feel like they know what's going on with themselves, but they're not yet ready to face their peers or their friends and family and want them to recognize that they're going through this. However, a typical age related change would be, it's normal to feel uninterested by family or social engagement at times, right? Um, I don't always want to hang out with my family or do family things. I might pop in for an hour and then leave, and that's perfectly okay. But for me, I'm a very social being. So if all of a sudden, you don't see me or I'm not engaging like I once was, then that might be a warning sign. And let's say, this person was never social to begin with, right? um, that's okay. Maybe they were an introvert from that's just who they are. But there are other signs, right, that we've discussed that might prompt you to notice some things, some changes in their memory or thinking. So, again, not all these warning signs will be applicable to every person. They might exhibit 1, they might exhibit 5, they might exhibit all 10. And so the last warning sign is changes in mood and personality. This is another big common warning sign because people who are diagnosed or experiencing this will become confused, suspicious, depressed, fearful, anxious, all of those emotions that are deemed as not good. And so they might get easily upset either at home or when they're just out of their comfort zone. And then on the contrary, as we age, it is normal to develop very specific ways of doing things and becoming upset or just a little irritated when our routine is disrupted. So, someone with dementia may become fearful or angry or easily frustrated, which is something that should ultimately be addressed. And so that is it for the 10 warning signs. Now I will go into the resources we have for the Alzheimer's Association. So, one of the um, biggest resources that we offer, of course, as of today, education programs. So you guys just learned about the 10 warning signs, but we also offer these other topics online or as well as through presentations in person or virtually. We also have support groups. These offer excellent opportunities to learn directly from experienced caregivers and gain that support. And these groups really help caregivers work through their challenges and share coping strategies. And we also invite other community organizations to come in and share their resources and services as well. So you can find your local support group down there by visiting www.alz.org/CRF. And I do encourage Aging Advantage, if you're not already listed as a resource, to definitely apply to be on our community resource finder. And so this is where we bring all of our constituents who, depending on their needs, this is where we send them. So Aging Advantage could definitely be one of those resources that are listed. Basically, you go there, a constituent would go there, type in their zip code for the resource that they're finding to find the closest one nearby. And then lastly, we have our 24/7 helpline around the clock, 365 days a year. This is a free service as well. There's specialists and master level clinicians that answer this phone, and they offer that confidential support and information to people who are on this journey. And we do offer 200 plus languages. So if they need help, we are able to help them. Lastly, I just want to share some upcoming programs that we have at the Alzheimer's Association. These two programs are also virtual. So first, we have the Healthy Living for Your Brain and Body Tips for Caregivers. So just providing some ways to live a healthy lifestyle, and essentially what's good for your heart is good for your brain. And then we have on April 15th, Coffee Conversations, and that will be on the topic of the latest update on Alzheimer's and dementia research. And so that's all I have for today, and I'm willing to take questions if anyone has any questions.